Okay, so today we are talking about Macan Porsche Convertible and why it never happened, but also what could have happened. So we're going to look a little bit at the creation of the whole Cayenne when actually historically Porsche thought about a convertible SUV. It was never made, obviously, but there are also other example of cars similar like the Land Rover convertible or even in the Volkswagen family the T-Roc convertible actually exists. So there is a market for small compact crossover convertible. Everybody's doing a two-door, but we have illustration also potentially a four-door. And we're going to run in a couple of questions about, the pros and cons of this type of cars. And we thought the design that we were able to come up with for the Macan actually look pretty nice. Maybe this car will come up someday, but let's try to deep dive a little bit into what this car could look like, and then we'll get a little bit more into the history of convertible SUV, and then why we think that Porsche was really really close to make one. So Chris, tell us maybe a little bit more about. We can go straight, I think, in the little bit of the history of convertible SUV, and thinking the Jeep was the first convertible SUV and still is today.
Yeah, I mean, the SUV and crossover market of late has gone crazy. I mean, the automakers like Ford don't even make passenger cars anymore outside of the Mustang. And but the concept of I mean, when you look at SUVs and crossovers, they're kind of used interchangeably. So an SUV traditionally has a proper body on frame, tough underpinnings, whereas a crossover is mostly built on a unibody platform. So we need to establish that difference. But open top experiences, I mean, the very first SUV, as we saw on the slide, the Jeep was, created from a utilitarian perspective for the war effort during World War II. So it was created as an open top vehicle, and that we still have some offerings to this day. So the canopy, of course, I mean, was added with the CJ later on. But you can take the doors off and the roof off of these vehicles, like the Jeep Wrangler and the Ford Bronco here, for example. But with a unibody SUV, I mean, this fad that I like to call two body styles, I'm not really really fond of design wise. Is one of this is going to be the convertible crossovers. I see them as completely pointless. Nobody really asked for these vehicles. I think automakers took it a bit too far. And two of the popular ones, I mean, that came and went, the Murano and the Evoque convertible, they didn't really last long. I mean, the Evoque, I think, even after a facelift, they just managed to sell around 12,000 because the market, you need to understand, is going to be super niche. It's mostly going to be around coastal areas. Yes, I suppose it gives you a little more practicality. You're sitting a little more higher up. You have the ability to seat more people. But when it comes to the aesthetics, I think Land Rover didn't really play their cards right because they ruined something that was otherwise, perfectly nice to look at. So that's a brief about, what's a crossover convertible and what's your traditional body and frame SUV
Yeah,
convertible.
I think that the Murano, again, we have to remember for the little story. I mean, I think he was the wife of the CEO Carl Ghosn at the time that wanted to have a convertible crossover. I mean, when the crossover came out, it was really all the craze. Everybody just wanted crossovers, and they like almost brought out regular car completely. So they say, okay, if everybody's buying a crossover, let's try to make a convertible one. But obviously, there are a lot of special case. Convertible car that were made one-offs, but as real like production manufacturer, actually not too many people tried it. Personally, I think the Land Rover looks pretty good. I mean, I think again a lot of people are not into sports cars, especially older generations. So I think it would play nicely with the Porsche customers. They're usually older crowd. They want a convertible, but not everybody wants a 911. And I think that's where we are coming back to actually some historical point of view from Porsche.
Yeah.
And actually, when the Cayenne came out to be in the 2000, apparently they actually were thinking about multiple body size and body style. And apparently, we can see it now with the coupe, but I think they kind of always had that in mind. But something I did not know about is that actually they even thought about a convertible Cayenne. So if you want to tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I mean the Cayenne celebrated 2 decades, 20 years, and which is when Porsche actually released these pictures. So when the Cayenne was being developed, obviously it was their first off-roader. It was a completely new segment. It was one of the models that actually saved Porsche apart from the Boxster. So people, obviously the purists weren't very accepting. You're taking a new direction for the brand, which is traditionally a sports car brand, and now you're going to make an off-roader. So I suppose there wasn't really a demand for other body styles with the Cayenne. So although the engineers were developing three, they only decided to release the main SUV, and then the coupe came in 2019. Finally, the market was caught up. But they also made this third prototype, as you see here. This is not a working prototype of a Cayenne. It's a two-door Cayenne. Apparently, the doors are considerably longer than your traditional Cayenne, because in order to make it accessible to access the second row, and you can see it has a traditional targa top for structural rigidity, and you can take the roof off. It used the targa top from the 911 of the time, and they were trying two different rear ends to see what works. So this is a prototype that is on display right now at the Porsche Museum in Stuttgart.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like they literally made them like they cut the car in half. They were really like questioning themselves. Okay, what are we gonna do with this? I think there's some pretty
Yeah,
interesting design concept. I mean, when you see the whole part there in the back, it could be a little bit like a whole clamshell that could potentially open two out the back, then folding the roof, then come back on and offer some kind of rigidity with almost like a reinforced roof bar here. So again, I think the exclusivity of SUV convertible for me is quite appealing. I'm surprised nobody's doing it. Most people
yeah,
don't take those car off roads anyways, and it's kind of almost like a show off car. So I'm surprised they haven't done it. And so let's jump into our rendering a little bit more here to see, again, let's consider about what would happen, if we are making a Macan coupe. And I think this rendering here actually looks really sleek in
yeah,
a two-door version with a short wheelbase, almost looked like a Mercedes C-Class convertible, but we also went a little bit more extreme here with a four-door convertible. So this one would be, I
yeah.
think, even more surprising if they were coming with this, because about the two-door convertible here look almost like a sports car with just a higher belt on the side. But I think this would be super cool. Of course, when we start to close the convertible top, that's when the size start to be a little strange, and you wonder where would they be able to store this top in the back. But with Porsche ingenuity, I think they could still do it. But let's try to go a little bit into the pros and cons of what would a Macan SUV be, and then we'll close up on seeing, like, trying to talk again if we think that it could happen.
Yeah, so one of the pros, I mean, with a convertible crossover, obviously, I mean, once you take the roof off, obviously you're going to get the open top driving experience. Again, as I mentioned, this kind of vehicle is going to be super niche. The market is going to be very small for it. It's mostly around, coastal areas, or a region which receives adequate sunlight. But with the Porsche, I think compared to the Land Rover Evoque convertible, I think the Macan would have been a competitor had it actually come to market. And with the Macan, even with the roof gone, I think Porsche engineers would have managed to offer superior handling capabilities. Because even if you look at the 911 for example, Porsche engineers know they're going to have to develop multiple body styles on the same platform. So with early examples of the Carrera, I think from the 2000s, for example, they started off developing the convertible first, and then they built the coupe around it because they knew they're going to have good structural rigidity, etc. So I don't think taking the roof off was never ever going to be a problem for Porsche, because I think they've mastered the art of making nice handling cars even without the roof.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so
think yeah, I think yeah, it would not have been so challenging for them. I think it's a bit more the market, but I mean, especially if they were doing a four-seater with four door, I think that would have been a pretty interesting challenge for them. I guess, especially with the quality of the top these days, they could be still relatively quiet, and I think it would be like a unique winning formula. I mean, I think a lot of people would be interested with such car. I mean, the Porsche 911 convertible is nice, but it's still pretty tiny, and the Macan is already a very expensive car. So I think people that have the money to buy this kind of car, and I think it would have been super cool. Honestly, as much as we're talking about it now, it sounds a little bit crazy. I would not completely exclude this car really coming out, especially as the aging population is pretty wealthy these days, and they want a sports car, but they also want something that's convenient because they're getting old. They don't want to crunch climbing into a Porsche 911. I think this makes more and more sense. But let's jump a little bit into the cons of why that car is not really a good idea.
Yeah, so one of the cons, obviously, I mean, especially with a smaller platform like the Macan, for example, the rear seat legroom is still going to be extremely tight. So I say it's not a four-seater; it's you have the ability to seat four. And with the roof down, I mean, it's going to occupy a lot of space in the trunk. So I don't really know how practical it's going to be. That's going to be one of the biggest cons. Another one is going to be slightly compromised safety because this is a slightly higher riding vehicle, unlike a sports car. Which is why, I mean, if you see on the concept for the Cayenne, you had the roof bar, which kind of adds that extra degree of safety, and it's going to require additional weight and structural reinforcements. Uh,
Yeah. I think when the top is open, at some point the car may be actually interesting, getting more traction with all that weight. But when the rooftop is open, the top may actually end up weighing maybe even more than
yeah,
the regular car. So the handling would definitely be quite different. That's for sure. Again, you would lose the really cool handling that they have, and that may actually be the biggest cons where Porsche never really want to sacrifice the
yeah,
quality of the handling of their car. So I think they
yeah,
would have a hard time accepting this, and I think that the complexity, especially on a four door car,
yeah.
would be quite something. I still think it would look really cool and so unique that they should really do it. But yeah, those I think are definitely some cons. And the trunk, on the Macan is already not very big, but on this one, I think you would have pretty much zero trunk at all.
Think if the an aftermarket shop probably can pull something like this off. I mean, if you see Mark Zuckerberg recently got the stretched
Yeah,
the Cayenne coupe made, right? So I mean,
yeah,
it could still be possible because this is a gas powered Macan, which is not going to stick around for much longer, maybe
yeah,
for another year. And finally, it comes to design. I know this is going to be subjective. Um, but I'm not necessarily sure. Personally, I'm not really a big fan of convertible crossovers. But Porsche does, so to each their own. But traditionally, as I mentioned, Porsche has kind of mastered the art of making open top vehicles. You have multiple body styles, the Speedster, you've got the Cabriolet, and of course, the Targa. So you still have plenty of choice, but obviously, these are not going to be very practical, even with some of them
yeah.
having four seats.
I think definitely they don't really have the offering, but that's why I want to bring the T-Roc there in the thing is that they really actually have the car pretty much all down in the Volkswagen Group lineup with the T-Roc, even
Yeah.
though it's a even more compact car, and I think it rides maybe even a little higher. But
Yeah,
I think that car actually sells pretty decently in Europe, right?
yeah. It's pretty popular. In fact, because this is again a shrinking market and there's not many competitors. I think there might be some French cars, French automakers who are tapping into this. Probably around most of the Med countries, as I like to call them, Spain, France, Italy. That's
Yeah.
where they'd probably be popular. So, yes, this brings us to our final slide. Do you think Porsche made the right call in not making a convertible version of the Macan? So please let us
Yeah,
know your thoughts.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think it would be interesting to see if people want to comment about what their take on this, about what's wrong with it, or what would be great about it. I think uh, for the European market, I can totally see how people want this.
yeah,
In the US, maybe a little bit less because we really have some pretty good offering with the Bronco, the Jeep, those bigger convertible, which fits pretty well in the American landscaping, but they're pretty large footprint. So personally, I still think that the rendering are pretty enticing, especially in the two-door version. So I hope you guys, enjoy the rendering, and we're looking forward to see, what you think about it, if it's crazy or not. And when you make your comment, make sure to think twice about it, because honestly, I would really not be surprised for Porsche to release one of those cars in the near future. So hopefully, Porsche, if you're listening, look at the rendering, see what you think as well. And if they do, we'll definitely make a follow-up to say that we were really right about this, and we are not crazy, but we are just looking forward to the future. Okay, thank you, Chris, for this. Again, Chris worked pretty out on those renderings, so really nice job on all that stuff. And we'll see you very soon on another Porsche video on the Motorhead channel. Bye, Chris.
All right, then. Bye.